Hello, everyone, and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. Ralph Leary's in the background, and man, we are entering week number 0. College football on the horizon. That means Georgia Tech is just a little over a week away from playing that season opener on the road at Colorado. But tonight, we still have to talk about some of the offseason headlines. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to be done talking about this stuff in actual game action, I guess is the best way to put it. Ralph Leary's in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. This is Swarm Talk, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. And yes, Gavin, we're rocking the row back here on a Sunday evening, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Subscribe, folks, as we get ready for college football. That's how you can do that. If you are saying, hey, I'm not going to monetarily help out the Crowded Booth, we respect that. We appreciate that. But we would love for you to like the stream, like the videos, comment as you will, and just subscribe to the channel. Completely what they get to do. All right, let's talk about this. Tonight's show is kind of a mixed bag, I think, in terms of we're talking about 2025, and then we got to talk about a big picture kind of media spin. We're I guess we could say a little bit late on this, but I wanted to kind of save this for Sunday night's live show. And yes, Joe, finally a haircut. Shout out the barber for doing some good things. We're gonna get a nice clean shave for tomorrow night's show. So let's dive into this. Ralph's in the background. We appreciate him. Make sure you put some L's up in the chat for Ralph. That's L's because we like Ralph, not L's because he's a loser. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's rock and roll. The news kind of hit the airwaves on 680 The Fan when I believe his name is John Michaels, who is a Miami fan, by the way, I believe. John Michaels was over on just kind of talking about, and I like that, Joe and Dev, talking about, I guess, I'm going to be real with you. I hadn't seen the entire clip, okay? But he was talking a little bit about, just Georgia Tech in general and Auburn and kind of the projection of what they're going to do. And obviously, when you put those two teams together, one thing I'm also tired of talking about is Eric Singleton Jr. Obviously, unless you live under a rock, Eric Singleton Jr., a highly productive receiver at Georgia Tech, really a steal out of the state of Georgia. Good get by Josh Crawford and others at the time. Gets Georgia Tech absolute stellar freshman season. Had a sophomore year that he wanted to build upon, but still a solid sophomore year. Entered the portal as one of the top receivers, depending on which industry ranking you looked at. Goes to Auburn with some ties. His roommate Tay Seymour at Georgia Tech. They're both now over there on the Plains. So I'm gonna, instead of explaining this clip, Ralph has it pulled up. So, Ralph, let's go ahead and pull up this clip of John Michaels. And please excuse me if I'm saying his name incorrectly. This is John Michaels, about a 30-second clip, it looks like, talking about the Eric Singleton and who's better. Is it Auburn? Is it Georgia Tech? And who's the better program? Here we go. Let's hit play, Ralph.
Understood a couple of years ago when Jahmyr Gibbs went from Tech to Alabama. You understood that. You're going to Alabama. You're competing for a national title. Georgia Tech's better than Auburn right now. They are. Auburn fans, you can yell at me all you want. You're not. You wish you were Georgia Tech right now. You wish you had Haynes King and Jamal Haynes and some of the guys that you have. Now, Auburn could potentially be good, but they're banking on a quarterback in Jackson Arnold. I think it was Jackson Arnold, who wasn't very good at Oklahoma, transferring there, and Eric Singleton. I don't get that transfer. I never got that transfer. Understood a couple of years ago when Jahmyr Gibbs.
All right, so go ahead and hit pause on that, Ralph. Okay, so lots of things to dissect from here. I'm going to start from the end where it talks about how he thought it was Jackson Arnold. It is Jackson Arnold. And, didn't understand the transfer. Well, that's just, and this is all due respect, okay? And I said this multiple times in an earlier show today. All due respect. If you didn't understand why Hugh Freeze went out and got Jackson Arnold, then you really don't pay attention. Just all due respect. Like, this has nothing in the world to do with, Georgia Tech at all. Like, let's I know this is a Georgia Tech show. Let's dive away from Georgia Tech to begin with. Auburn needed a quarterback. They went and got a guy who they feel like they ran the system. So the back half of the comment, to me, starts to kind of discredit the logic of where he's going with. He's emotional. He's a Miami fan who's gotten his butt handed to him twice in a row by Georgia Tech and in completely embarrassing ways. So to me, it's just one of those things where what he's saying on the back half, right? What he's saying on the back half of this, and you guys can text in the group all you want. I'm going to go ahead and hit that do not disturb button there, Ralph. This whole thing is a little bit, and Will said, a big of a nothing burger. What he says in the back half, like, that's just not understanding the ins and outs. And maybe I'm just one of those people because this is my 9-to-5 job and this is what I do all the time. I know way too much about the things that happen. Like, we had someone, and this is another, once again, with all due respect, that did not know that Dan Mullen was coaching at UNLV in the Discord. That's fine. It's not your job to know that. I understand that. The people who are in this business and do this every now and then, like every single day, we're just going to know these things, not as a brag. It's just, you just know them because you're constantly in the news cycle. Appreciate that, Meow. Make sure you like the stream. So when we talk about what that comment was, right, I want to keep working from backwards to forwards. Is Georgia Tech better than Auburn? I'm going to get to that at the end of this segment. I do believe, and Will can crash out in the comments, I do believe that if Auburn had the opportunity, they would like Haynes King. I think that is a fair assessment in terms of what you know of him as a gamer, what you know of him in terms of the personality, and the level of play that you could probably get out of him. Like, I don't think that's an absolutely insane take to say. Would you like Jamal Haynes? Yes. I think that, there's very few teams in the country, and Auburn being one of them, that wouldn't take Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. However you want to splice it up, those are two top 20 players at their position. Okay. So are there some players that Auburn would maybe like off of this roster? Of course. Yeah, that's fine. And even Will just agrees right there, Ralph. You can throw up that comment. From what we have seen so far, Haynes King is better than Jackson Arnold. Also, too, and to help out the argument on Will's side of things, being an Auburn fan, you've only seen one season with Jackson Arnold. You've seen 75 years with Haynes King. Jamal Haynes will be running back one at Auburn. Okay, so we get that out of the way. Not even an argument. So Auburn would want Haynes King. Now, going back to what this guy said on the radio and kind of dissecting this, then talking about how Jackson Arnold wasn't even good. Well, you all know how I feel about this. We've talked about this, a lot on the show. When you say things like this, especially, Ralph, am I getting in trouble for this? Because I've talked with the higher ups at that location. When you say stuff like this on air, national airwaves, a lot of this stuff is for clicks. But you have to be able to provide context within a back and forth. Now, once again, I don't know exactly what the entire segment was. I'm just saying within the context of this. So maybe I need more context to understand the whole segment. But in this 30-second clip, you have to provide context for what Jackson Arnold was in, right? They had Bauer Sharp at tight end, great athlete, just dominated, by the way, in my stream over on 3 Bengal Tiger channel. You have him at tight end. You had your leading receiver for last year, Nick Anderson, did not play essentially the whole year. You had your whole starting 4 or 5 receivers out for various points. Your offensive line was banged up constantly. So understanding the context of what Jackson Arnold was in last year for Auburn is very important when you just throw out this, well, he wasn't good and I don't understand it. What that tells me is you didn't really research it and you don't really know. That's what that tells me. So that to me is kind of what that is. Now, once again, I don't know the entire context of that conversation. It's a 30-second social media clip. I can't, I can't speak to what it is because I don't know. But in that 30 seconds, I'm taking that out of context, but that's the context that they've provided. And that's the difference, right? So would Auburn like some of Georgia Tech's players? I don't disagree with that. You just brought 2 of them over. You know what I mean? And Eric Singleton Jr. and Tay Seymour. So you can't say that it's this massive chasm between, talent on the roster. Now, do I think there's some spots that Georgia Tech would want some of Auburn's players? Yes. I'll tell you, there's a number 15 that's going to be playing defensive line and edge rusher this year that could be a day 1 pick in 2 years, I believe, or whenever it is. Keldrick Falk would be the number 1 edge rusher on a lot of Power 4 teams. It's not a knock on what you have in Atlanta. It just is what it is. So vice versa, you can kind of pick and choose where you feel like you could be better. So I think in terms of this, it's understanding the context of what Auburn is in, right? Okay, so we've done that. Now, in terms of Georgia Tech better as a program, now Ralph, correct me. He did say program, correct? They're the better program right now. You can go back and tell me, and then put in the private chat. Does Auburn want to be Georgia Tech? I don't believe with any semblance of, like, I know I get drugged through the mud times for not being this fanboy that's going to just go up with the white and gold constantly. I like Georgia Tech. I have a vested interest in them being good, not just from a business standpoint, but from relationships I have with people that are inside that building and have been a part of that team. What I think it's important to understand is that, does Auburn want to be Georgia Tech? No. Would they want to be them in 2025? Okay. Now, Will and I talked about this. And I texted Will and I said, is it okay to make the argument, or is it valid to make the argument that Auburn would want to be Georgia Tech this season? Yeah, I think that is 110% an okay argument to say. Auburn fans may disagree with it, but I also think that Georgia Tech fans would say, yeah, like, we can understand that of why too. He says, so Ralph says he doesn't say actually, he just says Auburn wants to be Georgia Tech. Once again, a very broad statement. So they want to be them this year? Okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Do you want to be them as an overall program and everything institutionally about what you are? I'd argue no. And the reason I argue this, and people just glaze over it because they look at records, Auburn wants to be who they are because no matter what, and Will can attest to this, if Hugh Freeze doesn't work out, they're going to be able to buy him out, and then they're going to be able to pay another, they're going to have to go for some low-level coach because they got money. Auburn has more money available to them. They've got more donors. So it doesn't really ever matter if you go 7-5 and 6-6. None of that matters when you're talking about institutionally what you can provide. Auburn can provide a more consistent. Oh, Ralph. Auburn can provide a more consistent opportunity to get at the top of the sport than Georgia Tech can currently. I just said that. That's not in my notes, but I do believe that. And why is that? Talent acquisition and money. Those are the two keys that drive this sport. Does that mean Georgia Tech is a bad team? Does that mean that Georgia Tech is a bad program? No, I think Georgia Tech is a top 40 program in the country. I think they're a top 30 team entering this season. There you go, Will. I think Auburn can provide you from a 30,000-foot view when you just look at what you have there. They can provide you with an opportunity to consistently try to get to the top of the sport more often than not. Now, have they been there? No. But just because something hasn't happened recently doesn't mean it can't. You have all the resources necessarily to get there quicker in terms of that. So that to me is kind of where I don't agree with this, because as a program, and he didn't say it, but if he means that, whatever, as a program, I don't think Auburn fans want to be Georgia Tech. Like, I don't think you want to be in the ACC. You want that SEC money. I don't think that you necessarily want to, be a program that has some types of limitations comparatively to you and who they can bring in. And don't tell me that that's not true, because it is 110% true. So to that aspect of it, I think it's completely fair to say that Auburn would like to be Georgia Tech in 2025, but as a program in whole, they don't necessarily wish to be that program. That to me is, Rob, is that crazy? Like, I feel like that's a pretty fine line of what we're understanding here. Would Will rather be a Georgia Tech fan, dire Georgia Tech fan this year than be an Auburn fan? Probably not, because some of you are nuts. But in all seriousness, I think in the scheme, or this, how do I say this? Through the lens of just this season, it makes sense. Overall, it doesn't, because there's just so many things institutionally you have to understand about both places of why it would be more feasible for you want to go there. So that's kind of where it is. Now, the last part of it is Georgia Tech better than Auburn? In 2026, yes, they're a better team than Auburn coming into the season. Like, that's not breaking news for anybody. They know what they're They know what they are. They have an identity. They've just got to figure out a couple of things, and they'll be fine. Auburn has some big questions here in 2026. I don't think that Auburn necessarily has Ralph Will might disagree. I don't think they have complete. If Hugh Freeze doesn't work out, Auburn has questions about who they are as a program for sure. But institutionally, on who they are, they still kind of have an idea. Now, it could be interesting to see how that changes over the course of the next 4, 5, 6 months. But in terms of is Georgia Tech better than Auburn in 2025? And apologies, Will. Yeah, they are. Did I say 2026? I'm sorry. Apologies. They're the better team. They're not the better program trajectory. I mean, once again, you need context. And I'm not going to sit here and say if Auburn was in the ACC, they'd be 10-2 every year. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying is that when you take a middle-of-the-road ACC team and a middle-of-the-road to back half SEC team, you have to understand the context. It's not just a clean-cut, dry comparison. You know what I mean? Like, you don't just have your pros and cons list, your T-chart out here, and you're just saying, well, it's here, and everything's even. It's not. It's not. And that's what makes this sport beautiful, and that's what creates debate and conversations like this. So that's just kind of what I wanted to address tonight in terms of, is Georgia Tech better than Auburn? I think as a team in 2025, they are. As a program as a whole, from what Georgia Tech's not bad. Like, I think me saying Auburn's a better program is not meaning that like Auburn's 30th in the country, Georgia Tech's 427th behind, Trinity College in Texas. No, what I do think, sorry for Trinity just, throwing shade over there, hashtag hook 'em bikes. I think it's one of those things where these are pretty comparable programs in terms of that. Like, it's interesting. I see a lot of people in the comments here talking about like Jackson versus Haynes King, and bore yourselves to death with that argument. It's pretty interesting there too. PC Toddy asked this: if context matter, and Brian Jones says, or Lincoln University Oaks. If context matters, isn't the context of Eric Singleton also matter? That was the discussion after all. PC Toddy, I don't know what the original conversation was, so I can't speak to that. The context of Eric Singleton also matter. So what do we mean by that? Is Eric Singleton going to be in a better situation at Auburn? I mean, I don't know why you couldn't make the argument that he could be. And okay, I understand what you're saying. When he talks about Jahmyr Gibbs, he was playing up. Like, guys, I'm going to keep saying this, and it doesn't work for everybody, and it doesn't matter. Okay? It comes down to exposure. Kyle Kennard is a great example of it working. Amarian Brown is a great example of it not working. Jahmyr Gibbs is a great example of the decision paying off. Nate McCollum's a decision of where it didn't pay off for you. The risk is worth it to a lot of these kids. And the risk was worth it to Eric Singleton Jr. and his family. And that's fine. Like, I commend him on that. Because if it pays off, data and statistics show that you have a pretty good likelihood of getting drafted out of the SEC comparatively to a different conference, and you will be boosted because of that. Does it matter? It doesn't necessarily matter what you do on the field all the time. It's projectability, and it's what it appears to be. That's what the game is. Whether we want to sit here, I don't even agree with that. Whether you want to sit here and you say you like that or not, that's what it appears to be. If Eric Singleton goes out there and has 700 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns this year, he's going to get drafted. Like, he's going to get drafted off for measurables because he's going to be a combine freak. He's going to go off to the combine. He's going to look great there. They're going to see 3 years of production. And it is what it is. Like, that's going to happen. And that's good for him because now in the minds of scouts, and so I want you to follow this in terms of this. In the minds of scouts, this is how it works. Like, I've talked to people, this is how it works. Trust me, bro. When someone looks at Eric Singleton, it's like, okay, that's great. He did that against North Carolina State, UNC, Duke. Okay, that's great. When the caliber of athlete takes a step up, can he still do it? If he has over 500 yards receiving, is this crazy? Tell me. If he has over 500 yards receiving and 6, 7 touchdowns with what Auburn has in its wide receiver room, he's going to get drafted because now that tape is against Alabama. It's against Georgia. It's against Baylor. It's against teams that are necessarily. It's not necessarily they are. It's a proven fact that when you look at the SEC, they have more draft picks. Ralph, what was it? 79 draft picks in the NFL this year out of the SEC. 15 of the first. They had half of the first round. So it's just one of those things where that's how scouts look at it. Regardless if you at home or me sitting behind this camera and this microphone like it or not, that is what the perception and what, truthfully, the current reality is. So the gamble for him is worth it in that sense. If it pays off, it's going to be a major payoff. And if it doesn't, it just, it'll be one of those things where you got to see what happens. And, he hopes to put up a good senior year after that. I just don't necessarily think this is a conversation that we have to sit here and say the SEC had 71, the ACC had 42. Ralph said no. He messed that up. I can't hear you. SEC had 79. Yeah, ACC 42. All right, there's nothing for me to be able to say on this. I mean, I just think the Big Ten had 71. Yeah, Ralph, I mean, you can put that down. Like, I just, in the context of Eric Singleton Jr., all the power to the kid. I hope he gets exactly what he was looking for. He delivered on what he needed to for 2 years at Georgia Tech, and now he's trying to make himself, he's leaving the ACC to go play in a better conference. And if it works out, it doesn't matter the individual team. It's about tape. And that is what is being preached to him when they went in the portal, whether it was going to be Georgia, whether it was going to be Florida, whether it was LSU who looked at him, or Auburn. That is exactly what was preached. It doesn't matter how good your program is now. And I think Dev said this a little bit earlier. It's not about necessarily the team aspect anymore when it comes to these situations. And I'm not knocking Eric Singleton Jr. What I'm saying, though, is that it's one of these situations where how can I put myself in the best position possible? Because it's a business now. And that's the move that Singleton and them felt like was the best for the now and the future. So hats off to him. I mean, it's just, you don't have to like it. It's just how it is. You don't have to agree with it. I don't necessarily agree with all the aspects of it, but it is what it is. So there you go. You know what's also great, though? Ralph, our friends over at Section 103. Make sure you check out Section 103. Use code TCB15 for your first order and get 15% off today. Football season, folks, is 9, 8, 10, 11 days away from the kickoff for Georgia Tech out there in Boulder. If you want to get your gear, go ahead and get it right now, because it's going to be very interesting. If you can get it in time, maybe you need to get one of those ATL hoodies. You need to get yourself a hoodie and get out there to Boulder for the game. If not, you can obviously get it in time for the season home opener in 2 weeks. Make sure you check out our friends. I love their gear. I've got multiple stuff of it. They've got, by the way, they have hats now. You see in the background, I got an LSU hat back here. They just launched their LSU line about a month or two ago, and then they've obviously got their stuff. I got a hat over here for Georgia Tech. It's really, really awesome. So that's kind of where we, that's what it is. I'll get a couple comments before we go here. Mutual, in my opinion, we loaded up with depth and a close level of talent. He got paid. We win. Yeah, I don't think anyone. I don't know. It is interesting. It is interesting. So, also the NFL will find talent. They will. It's just. I'm not saying the scouts won't do their jobs. I'm saying that when they see a kid, if Eric Singleton pops off this year for Auburn, it's going to validate what everyone thinks about him, except for Georgia Tech, for a section of Georgia Tech fans that think he can't catch the ball and think he's terrible. That's what that is. So, all right, Ralph. Who else is our good sponsor? Our friends over at All Natural BS, and that's what some of y'all are saying in the comments. That's for sure, some BS. But All Natural bug spray is stuff that really, really works, providing effective chemical-free solutions for your home and garden. It is going to be awesome to see how this relationship develops. I like them. TCB 15 continues to develop. Love what All Natural BS does. Throughout the college ball season, they are our official bug spray partner. Tailgate season, patio season, maybe you're grilling out for Labor Day weekend. Make sure you pick it up over at allnaturalbs.com. All right, Ralph, let's talk a little bit of this. Put up Dr. Bob's comment there real quick. I think the ultimate takeaway from this discussion is that we need to renew the Georgia Tech-Auburn rivalry. Yes. That would be awesome as a non-conference game to start the year off every single year. I'm with you. It'd be great. Okay, so the next topic of conversation, little fall camp tidbits, little intel, little biscuit action, little I'm not going to say that live on the air. But it's one of those things where there was a scrimmage on Saturday, and Brent Key opened up to the media very I mean, he was very candid. Let's just throw it up, Ralph. This is Brent Key's opening statement, talking to the media, and not too happy with how things went on Saturday.
You know when you're ready.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I appreciate y'all being here. Not the only people that showed up today. All right, had our final scrimmage of preseason camp. Went 125 plays. I was planning to go about 100, but the first 100 looked like dog crap. So, everybody got a chance to get in there and play, see what they can do, how they can help this football team. We got some heat out there today. Reached about 94, but about 115 on the turf, which was what I wanted. I wanted to see how these guys could sustain and practice through some adversity. I don't think we did that well today. I thought I don't think we're anywhere close to being ready to play a football game. Way too many penalties, way too many turnovers, way too many blown assignments, way too many guys that either didn't play or tapped out for aches and pains and things you have to play through. We're not even close from the standpoint from mental toughness, the grit and the fortitude that you have to play this game. We got a lot of young kids on the field, new kids, but that is zero excuse. All right, so we got a lot of damn work to do. Questions?
You'd have to pay me. We'd have to make this a pay-per-view channel for me to want to be able to listen to some of the questions asked in that press conference. So let's just kind of break this down, and I'll give you maybe the one big tidbit that I've took out of this. And real quick, PC Toddy, not better exposure yet. It's better exposure. I mean, that's what it is. That's why Eric Singleton wants to leave, or not wants to leave, but if you perform against the SEC, data shows you're going to get drafted pretty high. You're going to be a dude, and you're going to be perceived more as a dude if you do that. Okay, so Fall Scrimmage Intel, what are my thoughts on Key's reaction? Okay, first off, have you guys ever seen the clip of Steve Spurrier where he walks up to the media and he's like, well, everything's terrible, everything's this. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say this. I wasn't there. I've talked to people who were. This is posturing. This is not the most accurate reflection of what happened on the scrimmage on Saturday. Was it pretty? No, it's not going to be necessarily the most beautiful thing. You want struggles. You want your defense to win some of the battles. You want your offense to look bad at times because your defense is playing so well. You want your offense to make your defense look bad at times. You want that competitive nature. Deciphering what Brent Key is saying is like trying to solve the Da Vinci Code, first off, because it just is what it is. This is nothing more than just a keeping the main thing, and making sure the people in that side of that locker room know that they hadn't won anything yet. Because outside of this show, and look, hey, remember, come back to this show because by God, we were the show that went live every single week, Ralph, talking about a 3-9 season. So remember where you came from in terms of when you find all these national shows talking about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's got a lot of media hype this year in terms of what they could do. Dark Horse, we've talked about them a lot. I was talking with Blake Ruffino, who does the Ruffino and Joe show. We were talking about it at LSU practice the other day. There's a lot of love for kind of what they could do in Georgia Tech's aspect of it. It's to me, we just kind of sit here on August the 17th, and what do I think? Well, this is what I think. I think that you have a team that is building up. They got a lot of veteran returners. They've got some question marks at different spots. I'm so ready for the season to start so we can stop arguing about it. I do not agree with the sentiment that there are 2 offensive linemen returning. I don't know why people refuse to acknowledge the fact that Corey Robinson played meaningful in most of your snaps last year. It's not saying that Ethan McKinney won't play well. It's just saying that's not true. It's just not true. So I think that is what it is. This is just nothing. You can read into whatever you want to read. I'm also going to tell you this. There are NFL coaches and there are college coaches that sit up and read off of a made-up sheet. There are. That happens. I don't know if it happened in this case, but that happens because you can manipulate. Here's what you need to know. And this isn't a shot at anybody. This is training camps, fall camp, spring ball 101 closed to the media. As a coach, you can make up whatever stats you want, and you can absolutely make up any type of scenario that you want. You probably need some context to understand what the drill was. Was it more favorited towards the defense? Was it more favorited towards the offense? I'm not buying a lot of stock in what Brent Key said. I think it's a sense of a humbling, making sure these guys know who have heard a lot of good things, especially a couple weeks ago in Charlotte, that they might be pretty good, making sure they understand the task at hand. They shouldn't overlook Colorado. I'm not worried about it. I think the team will be good in 2025. I think it's a good potential for a really good year in Atlanta. This is nothing more than just kind of posturing. Now, that's all I really have to say about that. The tidbits, the intel of this. I'm going to tell you this, man. Talk with some people who've been out there. Talk with some people who were there this weekend. This secondary is looking nice. The secondary is looking pretty good. And, we mentioned this when we talked about it in the spring and then added some guys in the portal. Like, I really do believe that Georgia Tech improved their depth tremendously on the back end. We talked so much about this, especially at the safety spot. Playable depth at the safety position is miles ahead of where it was last year. That's great. So secondary, from what I've been talking to people, is looked very good. They feel confident. They feel confident in the two deep that can play. Also, too, they feel confident about the fact that they can make plays with some of their younger guys, but they don't need to be forced into action. I've talked about that a lot on here as well. The last portion I'll speak to this is staying on the defensive side of the football. And Key mentioned this, in this press conference too. I went back and watched it and looked at it. Running backs look good. That's not a massive surprise there as well. The front seven, I might be drinking a little bit more of the Kool-Aid that this front seven is going to be pretty decent. I think they've got good coaching there, and I think it's going to be able to make up for maybe some of the lack of star power that they don't have and create some stars as a unit. At the pass rush position, at the edge position, it'll be interesting to see what they would do. But, it's going to be interesting to me to kind of see, what this pass rush can do, especially going against Colorado. We're going to have some episodes next week previewing that game, who's been very RPO heavy this fall. I'm excited to kind of see that there as well. So, yeah, not buying a lot of stock into what Brent Key was saying. That's great. But you've also – and this is something too. Like, from the fans' perspective, and Colorado fans want to make a joke out of it, is what it is. Man, it's really, really going to be interesting to kind of see what happens. But Brent Key saying something on August 16th about a scrimmage is not truly indicative of what's going to happen in the season. Everyone's starving for content. Everyone's starving for the season to start. So let's just calm down, enjoy the next, week or so until the game. Enjoy week 0 as we get to watch in Ireland. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Ralph Leary is in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. Some type of conversation happening in the Discord or in the comments there as well. I'm not really sure what it is, comparing SEC defenses. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, whoever it is, you're not going to convince Dev that the SEC it's not going to happen. I like Dev. Dev and I disagree, and it's cool. Dev's a cool dude. We'll see. All right. Ralph Leary's in the background. My name is Bryce Koon. Shout out to Section 103. Shout out to All Natural BS, the 2 presenting sponsors all year long here at Swarm Talk. We got another sponsor we're getting ready to announce in terms of a new deal and new kind of stuff this season. And hey, tomorrow night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern, we're kind of kicking off. This is back. We're back, baby. We are so back. We were back last week, but we're back with a bang this week. The full show slate. We're going to be coming at you with tons of content each and every single night. Tomorrow night, 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. What is the Big Ten doing, and why do they want 47 teams in the playoff? We're talking about that here in a little bit, and Ralph's going to hit the button here in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.